There's squirrels fighting.
Oh,
I thought they were gonna run in the background. That would have been lit.
Yeah.
Oh.
Oh, you dumb squirrels. Why not?
Guys, you're not in the shot.
Yeah, guys, come on. Redo that. Come on.
Go back. Everyone in film is so judgy.
Redo.
Take two.
Thank you for coming on. Can you introduce yourself and what you do in the arts?
Hi, my name is Lysia Mogford. I'm 23. I'm a recent graduate from Temple. That's how I met Caleb. And I'm from Reading, Pennsylvania.
How was growing up in Reading?
I loved growing up in Reading. Technically. I was born in Burnville, but then we moved here when I was like 5. So I've lived here for most of my life. Same house where we are right now. Welcome to my residence. What if we do like a Vogue 76 questions of my childhood home? And this
cut to touring of the house.
And this is my washing machine.
And this is my bed where I sleep.
But yeah, I grew up here. I love my childhood home. I went to Reading High. I loved going to Reading High. I went to Catholic school for a bit. Didn't love Catholic school. But I did a lot of community theater around here, and that's kind of what ignited my passion to continue to do this. Both my parents were in the arts, in theater. So I started really, really young, and I just kind of kept doing the thing.
What were the main events that made you fall in love with acting and wanting to pursue it through college?
So my parents had an acting studio when I was a kid, and I had like a lot of ADHD energy. So they'd be like, okay, we're just gonna put her over in this class and like she'll do it. And instead of like running around, like I was actually kind of participating, and I was continuing to do it because, like I said, like my parents were involved in it. And then when I became a person, became 6 years old, I started like doing community theater, and I started doing shows through school. And teenage and tweenage years are really hard for kids. I kept doing it through that. And I kind of got like this therapeutic element to it too, where I could like feel all my feelings and kind of separate it from who I was. So I kind of got that out of it. But there was never a doubt in my mind that this is what I wanted to do with my life. I think there were like a few distinct moments. I started primarily in music. Like I was a singer before I was an actor. And then I realized how fun acting could be. And I had a little bit of dance training as a kid too. So I was like musical theater kid. And then once I got to college, let me backtrack a little bit. I started doing improv in high school probably, just like with classes here and there, and that's kind of where I felt like I hit my stride. I was like, this makes sense to me. So then once I went to college, I did a few sketch comedy things through Temple Smash. I was on the improv team, and I did stand-up for a while, and then that's kind of where I felt like my niche came in. I was like, I love to do comedy, and I love to do this stuff. And right now, I'm working on finding a marriage between all those things because I'm reigniting my love for music and continuing on with my passion in comedy.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What kind of plays did you do throughout high school? And which one was your favorite?
It was all musicals. Like, I think I did one play in high school.
I guess musicals too. Like, what was that experience like of performing in front of people during that?
So fun. I'm a ham. I don't want to say, like, I have no shame, but I've got little to none. Like, I'll do pretty much anything. So it was a nice way for me to ham it up in a way that's socially acceptable. So I did Bye Bye Birdie. My favorite was probably Hairspray. That was my senior show, and that's where I was like, yeah, musical theater is kind of my jam. I did Chicago. I did a lot of ones where I was like the funny guy, and I really liked that for a while. And then I felt weirdly self-conscious about it for a little while, where I was like, why am I only getting funny guy? Why can't I be like the lead who's like more conventionally attractive or more conventionally likable? I played a lot of villains for a while, but honestly, I've kind of just embraced that part of it because that's who I would much rather be. I did The Crucible when I was probably in like 9th or 10th grade, and that was the first play, and I was like, okay, maybe I can go down the play route. And then all throughout college, I did pretty much only plays with an occasional musical here or there. I've done a little bit of everything. I can't say I prefer one over the other. Just any excuse to perform is good by me. My first ever play, I was 6 months old, and my parents were directing it, so I got carried across the stage at one point. So it's always been like a running joke that was my first show. But my first show that I can really, really remember, once I was in elementary school, I started to do these summer camps there. It would be like Alice in Wonderland, Little Mermaid, stuff like that, and I was like, oh, okay, this is awesome. And then I got Miss Hannigan when I was in like 6th or 7th grade, and I was like, yeah, this rocks. So I've done a little bit of everything. I did a few like intensives that were more like classes rather than performances, but ended up culminating in a performance. So lots of good stuff. Yeah.
Throughout the years, like from when you were doing it through grade school, throughout high school and college and more professional performances, what's your process of preparing to go in front of a group of audience? Like what kind of does your preparation look like, and how did that develop through your younger years to now?
I've always been like a very tactile person, so like I love the people who can sit down and do just like book work and journal as characters. Unfortunately, that is not me. I have to be kind of up and on my feet doing it. I did this really cool project called Ava, which I talk a lot about when it comes to you, and it was from there that I started making playlists as the character, which is very, very strange. Film was a brand new world to me starting freshman year of high school or freshman year of college. So I was really struggling to connect because I'm such a live theater person. Like I'm over the top. I've got a lot to say with my body rather than my voice sometimes. So I would start making playlists as characters to kind of get myself in emotional states where it would make sense. The stop and start to film really frustrated me for a while. I eventually got the hang of it, but especially with Ava, because that was my really big first film project that I worked on. I felt like I needed a way to connect and be able to stay in emotional headspaces. It was really nice because that project was really just a two-man set or a two-man crew. We literally had somebody operating sound and somebody on camera, and the sound guy would do the little clapboard, and that was it. So it wasn't like, it was a very good first experience to have because it wasn't overstimulating and there wasn't a whole lot happening. So I was able to really tap in. I do find that it took me a while to find that healthy emotional balance between I'm me, I'm the character. But through my education and all that kind of stuff, I really got into like the physical acts where it's like where you trick your body into thinking that you feel certain ways by doing certain movements. And like I said, I'm very tactile, so that always worked for me to experience things physically first, then emotionally.
With preparing for roles, and we're going to get more into like the differences between theater work and film work and like the differences of that. But when you're practicing for a role, whether it's theater or film work, you can go into like both. Because it may be a little bit different. How do you get into headspace of the character emotionally, and how do you set up boundaries for yourself so you don't get into trauma where it's like a trauma that like could lead into more anxiety, and how do you kind of like balance that?
Well, for a while, like I was told by a lot of acting teachers that there is no separation between the actor and the character, but that is such an old school way of thinking that I think a lot of the directors I've worked with, especially recently, discourage that completely. So part of it is the guidance of whoever you are working with / working for. And the other thing is that personal emotional block of this is me, this is the character. I don't do a lot of very serious stuff, you know? That was through Ava. The guy who directed Ava only saw me in Crucible. He thought drama was my jam. It's not. Oftentimes that separation between me and the character doesn't mean a whole lot to me because I'm playing very over-the-top characters who are either very similar to myself or such a departure from myself that they're so wacky and over the top it's very easy to split those people. But specifically with something like Ava or something like Dance Nation, which you saw, the preparation is similar for that emotional boundary, whether it's from like a film perspective or from a live theater perspective, that you can find pieces of yourself in that person, but you are a different person.
Now getting more into the film world, what is the biggest difference between theater and film acting?
Well, it's actually really interesting because now I'm a teaching artist, so like I teach theater as well. The way I break it down for my kids is that there's lots of differences, but there's also lots of similarities, and you don't have to pick like, I don't know, I feel like I've done interviews with you before where I'm like, it's this and it's this. But there's a lot of gray area in the middle there that you don't have to be so divisive about. So like with my kids, I'm always like, when you're doing theater, you can feel those big things with your body. But if you're doing an over-the-top comedy like High and Dry that I was on, I'm going to sell that with my body too. I don't have to just have a very like intense like facial experience where it can be very physical. I always used to talk about volume and understanding how mics work and the differences of film and all that kind of stuff. So I guess the biggest difference that I've experienced is what I kind of talked about before, like the emotional stop and start of film. I can do the same shot 300 times, like we saw with Politics, because I wanted something very specific. But asking people to hop in and out of that emotional thing can be very difficult. I will say all of the people I've worked with, like throughout maybe like the back end of college, have been very conscious of that though, where you don't ask somebody to break down 100 times on camera, whereas like in theater it is different every night and you have no control over it. So if you do a scene and you're like, I don't like that, it's like, fuck it, we're gonna have to do it tomorrow. Can I swear on here? Yeah, like, fuck it, we're just gonna see how it ends up at the next show. Whereas with film, it's like, nah, I didn't like that, let's do it again. I will say, now working on the directing side, I think last time you interviewed me, I did not have that experience. Directing like a theater production like I do with a famous studio, and directing something like a movie, so there's like a mosquito behind you and he will not leave you alone. Directing something from a theater perspective and a film perspective is very different for me now, so I'm very conscious with the way I treat actors because I know how I felt in certain situations. So yeah, I mean, broadening my experience has made me a better actor and a better director, I think.
Yeah, because with the previous interviews that we did together and everything, I purposely wanted to ask the same questions or a couple of the same questions, because there's like a year or 2 year gap in between interviews, and I was just wondering if there was like, through the experience that you've gotten, like what's changed, if there anything like changed in your mindset on certain things and everything. I just thought that was like an interesting perspective of like how it changed over time.
I literally was watching it last night to kind of prepare it. The first interview you ever did with me was like 4 or 5 years ago.
That's insane.
That's crazy.
I thought it was like 3 years ago.
No, it's 4.
That's insane.
The very, very first one. Isn't that weird?
That feels like yesterday, but
I know.
That's like so long ago.
Yesterday and forever.
Yesterday and forever ago. Yeah, jumping into now that you've done a lot more works, and like you alluded to with even directing some short films yourself, with Ava and High and Dry. Those are a drama and a comedy. Yeah. And what's your experience with, now that like both films are complete, or complete, I would say, what was your progression of each film, of just like Ava being your first, of like acting in it, then seeing it on the big screen, and like High and Dry, what are like, I guess it could be like, that's like a lot.
It's very meta. Being able to see yourself like that. Also, the thing with Ava is I filmed it almost 3 years ago, and I didn't get to see it until about a year ago. So like my acting in that is vastly different than I feel like my acting is now. It's not like I feel bad about anything that I did necessarily, but there's lots of things that when I then watched High and Dry, I was like, I feel like I'm such a different person in so many ways. There's something very rewarding about being able to complete a project like that almost like time capsules that part of your life, and time capsules like the kind of person and performer you were, to kind of like gauge your growth too. Because if I watched Ava and I watched High and Dry and I see the same girl there, I'm gonna feel like, oh, I'm not learning. I mean, I guess through that and through teaching now, teaching to me is so not linear, and learning and understanding different parts about yourself, different parts about how you feel about the arts world, all that kind of stuff. I think specifically during Ava, I had a very skewed view on film, because it felt like this other world that I was not allowed in because I didn't have experience, or I didn't understand the technical side of it and all that kind of stuff. And it's a little isolating sometimes, not because of anything that the directors or any film people at Temple did, but because those worlds felt very separate. I don't think I really fully understood it until I was able to direct something myself, or I did a lot of intimacy coordinating while I was at Temple, where I got to see that kind of side of it as well, that I really like understood how much it changes you as an actor to have that experience, if that makes sense.
Yeah, most definitely. You also alluded to this a little bit before, but how did you use some of your acting experience to help direct Politics of Girl Eats Girl?
I think, unfortunately, I directed like an actor. And I know that sounds pretentious, and I know that sounds annoying, but I've worked with directors who have never acted. And it doesn't make somebody a bad director. It doesn't change a whole lot. But I picked 2 very different actors for that, too. I picked somebody who's pretty much solely in film and somebody who's pretty much solely in live theater. And I took that into account when it came to characters, and I took those things into account when I gave them each preparation. Claudia's a Meisner baddie. So I'm going to use some Meisner technique when I talk to her because I have that vocabulary to talk about that. I'm going to backtrack on a lot of things I say. I don't want to step on any film toes, but that directors don't have that perspective. I went through 4 years of education specifically in that, not in directing, not in film, not in cinematography. So I'm sure it was frustrating for a lot of the film people being on set with me because I'm like, let's all feel the wind in our arms. But I feel like when it comes to working with people who also have that experience, taking a little chunk of that and taking a little chunk of what I've learned from all the film people I've come across made my experience as a director more fulfilling and more whole to me. Yeah?
Yeah, that makes a lot of
sense. That's some hippy-dippy bullshit.
That's a definition of film. It's just, and like the acting world and film, I feel it's just that hippy-dippy bullshit.
And every time I say it and every time it comes out of my mouth, I'm like,
every time I when I'm talking to like people within the film world or acting world and like theater world, I'm like, I wonder what like a person that's not coming from this, if they just could be a fly on the wall of like just being like, what the fuck are they talking about? Like, what kind of like, how many like drugs did they?
and unfortunately, none.
Yeah. We just called it something. We use a little spice called mental illness.
Yeah.
What was your experience directing politics? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I had a lovely co-director. I had Josh, which was really, really nice. It was a piece that I'd worked on for quite some time, and it was in my brain, and I was like, well, it's now or never. I'm gonna do this thing, and it actually inspired me to then talk to Rox and Soph about doing Famous Production Studio, because that was something I always wanted to do. I wanted to create work that felt uniquely me, and that represented a kind of group of like-minded people. So I started with Girly Girl, as all of our files are called, and it was a rush because we filmed it the day before graduation, day after my birthday, I believe. It was like, my birthday, film, graduate, fuck off.
But
so it was definitely a very quick process, but a very rewarding process because I'm gonna get sappy. Because
get sappy.
It was me, Tira, you, and Josh. And like, we all came in together at the same time. I'm literally gonna cry. We all came into school at the same time. We all went through COVID together. We were all very different people, I guess, when we started in some ways. But in some ways, like, we're still those kids. And nobody cries on this.
We need more crying.
No, I'm just feeling sentimental. It's a big period of change, and I'm like gonna move and all that stuff. We can cut this out a little bit. But, you know, it was just nice to be able, like, we didn't really work a whole lot together as much as we all hung out and as much as you and I had the podcast, but like as a group, we did a few projects freshman year and then we all just kind of did our own things and we would hang out socially, but it was nice and really just like rewarding to do something all together. Especially something that is about growing up and is about changes in relationships and that kind of stuff. And as much as like I'm getting weird and emotional about it, like it wasn't a sad thing, it was really fun. And it was, I don't know, I think when something lands and something sticks and something goes well and you're doing it with people that you genuinely love and respect and have known for so long, like it just feels right. And for a while, especially during COVID, like when things were separate and when things were online, the arts didn't feel right for the first time in a long time for me because I didn't get that expression and I didn't feel fulfilled in it. But then we did, and it was just like a breath of fresh air, and it felt like everything was going to be okay and everything was going back and I was doing the right thing, and it felt like the start of us all working together in the future too, because since then a lot of those people worked on High and Dry. A lot of those people were involved in film projects coming up, and I think that's just how I feel about it. I'm sorry I got weird. You can cut out parts of that.
No, that was really good. I love that.
I'm gonna throw up.
I love that.
See, like, this is what happens. I'm like, I don't do drama. And I'm like, I love my friends.
2 seconds later. Oh, that's amazing. Because I feel the same way. Because I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know. I feel like I desperately wanted to work with everyone. But I feel like when we did finally work together on an actual project, that was the right time, right moment. Because it literally was 4 years of experience. And we actually knew our shit. I mean, like, we're still learning and developing as who we are now, but, like, comparatively to what we were in freshman year of college and what we knew going into college, we all had skills and we were there in college for a reason, but, like, from that point and the 4 years later of developing that film, I'm just happy that we did it when we did so that we can encapsulate everything that we kind of learned throughout and allowed us to be, like, that goofy, like, friends and like getting those connections. And I feel like the 4 years were just building those connections and trusting each other and being like, oh, okay, this is how we can work together.
Yeah, and I feel like there was a lot of trust in that production. I think I came in very hot because I was like, I haven't directed anything in film. I have no idea what you guys are going to be talking about, and I'm going to be asking a lot of questions. And other times I've experienced that where we're like, well, other people have been like, well, obviously that's what that means. And I never experienced that with you or with the other people I listed. And it was that lack of judgment that comes so often in the theater and arts world. I mean, you're given 3 minutes to audition and they decide in the first 30 whether or not they want you. So that judgment is just there inherently. And I mean, even since going to film festivals, I'm not anti-judgment by any means, but it's nice sometimes to just create where there isn't that judgment. Yeah. If that makes sense.
Yeah, because I feel like there's an appropriate amount of judgment, but then there's like unnecessary judgment of like someone's learning and someone's like, you're in the theater world and you're entering a film space, and I'm like, if any of the film people went to a theater world, it would be like, what the fuck
is going on?
Yeah, what the fuck is going on? So it's like, obviously, like, you're not going to know every single thing about film and like all the terms, and we're not going to know everything about like theater, and we understand that, and it's we need some judgment in film, but it doesn't need to be unnecessary amounts, and it doesn't need to be cruel, and it doesn't need to be mean like the film world it is. And that's why I like Gen Z, because I'm like,
or even sometimes the theater world, I would argue there's some meanies there.
Yeah. And I'm like so happy that like Gen Z is like, oh no, fuck this, we're literally changing the environment of film because this is unnecessarily like evil. What was the experience of High and Dry?
High and Dry was so fun. I love Rox and Soph. Like, I'm very, very close with both of those people. They're like two of my best friends, and it was rewarding in the same way, except it was a hyper comedy, so I just felt like I was in my wheelhouse. I'm like, this is perfect. There was some improv-y elements, there was some physical comedy stuff. It just clicked for me. It just felt like I was home, and I was so much more comfortable on set post-politics that I could have those conversations. And there were moments where everything felt very tense and like, how the fuck is this gonna happen? And then it just would. It was almost sitcom-y in that way, where you're like, can't possibly turn... Oh, and it turned out. Yeah, I mean, that unlocked a lot of confidence on a film set for me too, because I felt like what I was doing was well received. There's squirrels fighting. Oh, I thought they were gonna run in the background. That would have been lit.
Yeah. Oh, you dumb squirrels. Why not?
Guys, you're not in the shot.
Yeah, guys, come on, redo that. Come on.
Go back. Everyone in film is so judgy.
Redo. You fucked.
Yeah, it was a lot of confidence building for me, which was really, really fun. It was a nice little emotional outlet for lots of funny bits I've been wanting to do. And the final project and getting to go to the screening was nuts, like such a nuts experience. There were so many people there from so many different areas of my life, and everybody loved it. And now it's going to Philly Fringe, which is really cool, and I'm so excited for that. Yeah, and it was just another experience where I got to work. All these animals want to make it fucking happen. I'm an actor. But that was really great. And it was nice to get to work with everyone I've wanted to work with in my last 3 months of college. To just be like, all right, cool. Wanted to work with you, let's go. So that was great.
What was the experience like watching the film and hearing all like the reactions to...
So rewarding. Because when you're on a film set, you're not allowed to laugh. And one thing about me, love to laugh. So it was nice to see things land, I think, in comedy. And I've really outreached into this specifically within my last 2 years of college. But honestly, in all aspects of college, I was always in these hyper comedy things. And when things don't land, drop it. There were so many times in my life where I tried to will people to laugh, and understanding that comedy's all about that timing, and when it works, it's so rewarding. When it doesn't work, can be funny to me, probably not funny to anybody else. And then there's like the other aspect of it where it was a big collection of people I've been friends with, some from freshman year. Getting to see all of us get to do this really funny, wacky thing together outside of class, and something that was made completely like community-based. Again, incredible, because I feel like they always told me, like in classes, it's all about the people you meet. It's all about the connections you make. And I was just kind of like, yeah, of course, that means something when it comes to people who are older than me. But actually, it's everybody I've met. It's all these people who I've been like, oh man, I think they're really cool and I would love to continue to work with them. Oh, well, let's wait till we both get cast. No, you just have to make those connections with people your age as well. Were you told that in school where it's like... Yeah.
All about the... I feel like that's like the first thing that they say, like first day of class. Like, guys, now it's all about the connections you make and everything. And it's like, yeah, I exactly agree. I just love that energy that we had. It would be like, no, we're not like waiting to be casted in the same thing. We're not going to wait to like, have someone put it in the hands of someone else and everything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was part of the reason for Famous Studio, too. Because that came about right after High and Dry, and then we did Lear, and then we did But I'm a Cheerleader. And I was like, if I want to work with these people, I'm going to make it happen. And I love directing, and I found this love for directing. Something about it feels right. I'm getting that same emotional release. Let's do it. It started as like me like privately messaging people like, hey, I think you're really cool and really talented. Please work with me. Please. And then we were able to do it in a way where I was able to pay these people too. Because so many times in theater, we do a lot of shit for free. I'm sure the same is for film. We do so much shit for free. It's nice to be able to say, hey, I really appreciate the work you're doing. I want to continue working with you. And hey, here you go. This is what we're supposed to be getting right now. And obviously money is not the main part of it. There were lots of moments where it just made sense, where we would be doing rehearsals in my apartment. We would be doing rehearsals in the backyard. We would have to stage these things, and we would have special effects. And I would ask my friend Carmen, hey, I know you really like special effects makeup. Can you make eyeballs out of grapes? And then I would talk to like some of my choreographer friends, and I would be like, hey, I really want to do this, this, and this. Can you help me achieve that? And I had tech people. We had a tech person for But I'm a Cheerleader. I don't know shit about tech. We're putting this on in a bar. Shout out Khyber Pass. Incredible bar, incredible venue. Very kind to us. Love working with them. But we're setting up full shows in there. And they've never had like dramatic performances in there other than some drag performances, which were really cool. And then we were able to foster relationships with local drag performers and artists and photographers and all this cool stuff. So it was just, again, making those connections like made a world of difference. And I wasn't looking for it from people who are working in professional theaters. I was working with people I knew, or people I didn't know, and I was sending crazy Instagram DMs to. I was like, please. So yeah, I mean, it was cool to get to see everybody work on stuff that they genuinely wanted to do too, but maybe weren't given opportunities to do.
Most definitely. How was But I'm a Cheerleader?
So fun. We did a Pride shadow cast of the movie But I'm a Cheerleader. So we played the movie in the background. If you've never seen a shadow cast, it was similar to like a Rocky Horror. And we had people act it out in front. But there were musical interludes that weren't in it. There were sound effects that weren't into it. There's a sex scene in it that I choreographed as a modern dance piece. There was just lots of... It was really freeing in kind of like a cabaret way. I think that's kind of the direction I want to go next. And that kind of came with Eastern State when I was a singer there. I kind of fell in love with the idea of cabaret, which is where there's little comedy shticks, there's music, there's dance, there's little performances, there's like scenes like that. So that was really cool too. And there's something in the works coming up that I don't know if I can talk about yet.
Can we get a little sneak peek? A little hint?
A Famous Studio is going to be moving both to Brooklyn and Philly, so we will have shows in both locations, which is pretty exciting.
Love it. Yeah. I can't wait. How was working with Eastern State Penitentiary and doing live performances? Yeah,
best job I ever had. I loved working there. I was allowed to pick my set list every night. I was allowed to be like, hey, I know I sang this last night. Don't want to sing that. I have a brand new track. Can I try it out? It was a really cool building to work in. It was a very cool group of people that I've since placed into a famous studio stuff too. I don't know. I feel like I had this weird insecurity about music early in college because I was studying acting and I wasn't studying musical theater. So when I dropped that bullshit and I was like, yeah, I still really love music. It doesn't mean it was what I had to study. I opened myself up to so many possibilities where I was in a musical after college. I was able to do Eastern State Penitentiary. I was able to do just singing gigs. And that was part of, like I said, I was a singer before I was an actor. Music is where I learned how to do most of the stuff I implement in performance. I loved working there. If I wasn't moving to New York, I would work there for the next 100 years. It wasn't a scary part. It was the only non-scare zone, or one of the only non-scare zones. And I was a character while I was working there too, so I got to do like little bits with guests. I would hide in cells. I would play blackjack. I would do lots of fun stuff.
How was the makeup environment? Like
crazy.
How long did it take to put on makeup? How do you have like the patience of being put on, having makeup done on you and everything?
It was so fun because you got a different artist every night. So we were the last to go into makeup because we were the latest open attraction because there was a bar there. So we would go and we would wait in line and you would get picked by whoever you get picked. And sometimes it would take 10 minutes and sometimes it would take 20 minutes depending on what kind of time they have. And it was just cool seeing the way I would turn out every night. It was airbrush makeup, which is something I'd never experienced before. It's so funny to watch yourself kind of transform in the mirror. I remember the first day they put me into makeup, I was like, holy shit, this is cool. It wasn't even like a matter of having patience because I was just so excited to see the end result. Loved working there. Super creepy experiences we'll talk about on Kids with the Worst Makeup. It was a rocking experience.
How long did it take off the makeup?
They would give us like 100 tools to mess around with. I always would do like baby oil and a makeup wipe. And I would, and sometimes it would be like still under my eyes and I could just go to the bar across the street. But it wouldn't take that long. It took maybe 5 minutes on my worst day. Because I wasn't in any prosthetics. I'm sure if I was in one of the attractions where there were prosthetics, it would have been a little bit different. But like I said, it was like an airbrush paint.
Okay. Kind of getting into your teaching.
Yeah.
What made you get into teaching and how did you kind of fall in love with teaching?
Yeah, I mean, so when I graduated, I was working in restaurants. I've been working in restaurants since I was 15 or 16. I want to do something else and I want to work in my field. And then I heard about the concept of a teaching artist, which is something where you can teach what you studied without necessarily having an education degree. So I applied for just one of the first jobs I saw and for some reason it stuck. So I was working for the Philadelphia School District through a free after-school program for students, I believe 2nd to 8th grade, or 3rd to 8th grade, and I worked in 2 separate schools, one super north, one super south. I mean, as a kid, like, I was not a good test taker. I was probably not the ideal student. I got good grades, but I had to figure out my way to get there. And I found that, like, when students sometimes were considered bad students in the classroom or poorly behaved, they would go into these arts classes and something would ignite and they would be so focused and they would understand it and they would just get it. And I was like, that was me. Like, I see that. I feel that. And it wasn't like I was working for kids that necessarily even signed up to do the arts. They just needed somewhere to be after school. Somehow, a lot of them really liked what I was doing. And we would have, like, visual arts. We would have dance. We would have music. We would have all these things. And then, of course, we would have theater. And just seeing kids pick something up and understand what you're saying, it kind of blows your mind to watch them, like, figure it out. And you see the gears turn. And do you hear him?
What?
He's going, wow. I don't know. It was just like something like watching something click for a kid is mind-blowing. Because I could say anything. I could be like, well, let's talk about the way that body or theater exists in the different energy centers of my body. And they're looking at me like this. And then they start to do it. And I can just see like the eyes kind of light up a little bit. And I would use a lot of those psychophysical things. And I became the teacher that I would have wanted as a kid. So I was silly and I was goofy, but I also made sure that they understood what I was talking about. They were doing what they wanted to be doing while still getting the point across. And I think it made me a better performer to work with children because children, they don't have a filter. They don't have that inhibition you have when you're a teenager and everything sucks and everybody hates you and you've decided that everything is embarrassing. When you work with little kids, they don't have that. So they're willing to do whatever. They do improv. I'm like, okay, act like a dog. They'll act like a dog. And when you see the teenagers do it, because now I work like with an online program that's 7 years old to 18. They have a little bit more choice that they want to be there. But when you see the older kids find that freedom where they kind of shed off that I'm not embarrassed by what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Because I think the arts provides that vehicle for kids to get that emotional expression. That's why I did it. That's why it felt right for me. That's why it feels right for these kids. And getting to see them do something that they genuinely want to do. And that I think, you know, a lot of that talent and that understanding of acting is something you learn as a kid. We play pretend as kids, and then we can translate that to theater because that's what it is. It's all about the play element of it that really opened a lot of doors for me and kind of helped me figure out a lot of things about how I felt about theater.
What was one of your best experiences of teaching? Like, what was your like favorite like moment? Is there like a moment that stood out and everything? Because you kind of already like answered it a little bit of just like seeing that like light in the like students' eyes, but is there like a specific event where it's just like, oh my gosh, that was like, this is so fulfilling? Yeah, my last school that I worked in person, we did like a final showcase. And when I tried to do the showcase at the first point, a lot of my kids were little and they were like, I don't want to perform in front of my parents. And I'm like, of course, that's fine. We'll do something different. But two of my girls were like, yeah, I'll perform. I'll do it. I'll do a monologue. I'll memorize it. I'll learn it. And I was like, okay, we'll see. I'll keep the monologues there just in case. And they both went up and they did it without it. And they had it all memorized and they hit all the acting beats. And their parents were there and their parents were filming. And I was just like, see that? When people genuinely care about the arts and put people in there that can help kids succeed in the arts, you can see it in the smallest things. And it's a matter of how much the kids care, but it's also a matter of how much an admin cares. And they were so proud of themselves, and they came off the stage like, yeah, I did it. And their parents gave them big hugs afterwards. It just felt like, I don't know, a very supportive environment that sometimes you don't see in the arts. Usually when schools lose funding, the arts are the first to go. So seeing a school that took that very seriously and a program that took arts education very seriously was just very surprising, but also very rewarding. Oh, that's amazing. Kind of transitioning to like post-college. Yeah. Do you have do you have any advice to someone who's in theater or film, like in the arts world, singing, music, and everything? Do you have any advice of going off your experience? Like you can go tell more so like your experience. But do you have any advice to someone who just graduated from college and finding jobs that they are fulfilled in and that continue whatever arts they're in, whether it's film, theater, acting, regardless? Like, what has your experience been and what's your advice to others to continue? The arts exist in more forms than just getting the role. I think that's it. I would say to someone, take every opportunity, even if it's something you don't feel like you know a whole lot about or something you don't feel qualified for, apply. The worst thing they can do is say no. I feel like that's something that has been one of my strengths. Even if I feel like I might be underqualified or feel like it's not what I really want to end up doing, I've taken the opportunity and it's never turned me wrong. I will say within that, ensure that your boundaries are respected as far as what you want to create, what you deserve to be paid, all that kind of stuff, what you deserve to receive in return for these things, not even just payment, just like some kind of fulfillment. So take every opportunity, but make sure that you are staying true to what you want and true to your end goal, and it can never turn you the wrong way. I mean, both my parents were teachers. I was always like, I don't want to be a teacher. Now I teach and I love it. It's not what I hope my end goal is, but it has provided me with a lot of understanding of myself as a performer through it. I've taken on projects where I'm like, I don't have a certificate for this, or I don't feel as though my education was in this, but I've still done it and it's turned out well and I feel confident about it, and I feel like the people around me have felt some kind of return from that, and to me that's a win, because that's something else on my resume. That's another person I know. That's another experience that I can then grow and learn from. As silly as it sounds when you're hearing it in school where they're like, put it out for everything, the amount of no's you'll get absolutely is disheartening. But when you put out stuff yourself, you build that community of artists around you and you just do the damn thing. Can't go wrong. I love that. I think that's really good advice. It's so difficult, like even throughout college, but post like graduation, after college and everything, to find your way, 'cause I don't know.
It's tough out here.
It's tough. I got two more questions. One's a little bit of a sidetrack question. What are your hobbies like outside of theater and acting? Like, what do you like to do?
What hobbies?
I'm saying that may be hard, because literally when someone asks what are my hobbies, like it's like
Film editing.
film editing. Oh, what do you do for work? Film editing.
I will say it is important to have things that you're interested in outside of what you do, because I do feel like you need to have that escape. What I will also say to that is, this is what I do for fun too. So in my free time, I do stand-up. I put on shows with my friends with a famous studio. I do a lot of visual arts. Visual arts was something I was really into in high school, and I even considered double majoring in it, and something I, again, kind of let go of for a while, and I'm getting back into it. I was able to take some really cool classes at Temple that kind of reignited that for me. Reignite is my word for today. I kind of like that. I did glass blowing, I did fiber works, something else I can't quite remember right now. But since then I've been crocheting a lot, I've been making a lot of visual arts, I've been collaging, I've been doing a lot of those things, because that feels very comfortable to me. Like, that's that inner child being like, oh, okay, it's time to play again. So that, foster cats, which is really fun. I have cats, so I like to hang out with them. And I love to cook. That's something I know a lot of people know about me. I love to cook. I love to cook.
What do you like to cook?
Everything. I like to look at new recipes. I make a mean peach crumble. It's delish. Make a lot of pastas. I was vegetarian for a while, so I try to make some stuff vegetarian. I love a crock pot meal, because it doesn't feel like cooking. It's like, but that's not what I would enjoy cooking. What I would enjoy cooking is, like stuff that my mom made me when I was a kid. Now I'm learning how to make it. That's fun. Yeah.
What does the future look like?
It looks like New York. I'm moving to New York really shortly, and I'm very, very excited. The future looks like a continuation of taking every opportunity. Right now, it's kind of been a period of change because I'm transitioning from Philly, and then I moved home, and now I'm moving to New York. So I would say in the past 2 months, my vision of the future has changed a little bit, but the end goal is still the same, to just continue to do what I love and to not sell myself short or miss out on opportunities. So I would love to continue doing comedy. I would love to continue doing music to an extent. I am looking right now to continue teaching for a bit, and I'm looking to keep making stuff with the people I love.
That's amazing. What are your socials, and do you want to plug any future projects?
My socials, you can follow me at... You can follow me at that actor Lysia for all of my film updates. You can follow me at call_me_Lysia with 3 A's for personal stuff, and sometimes art stuff. You can follow A Famous Studio to see what we're doing next, and our project coming up is pretty exciting, so check out that social media for more.
Ooh.
Possible auditions, possible ticket sales going live.
Ooh. Love. Awesome.
Oh, follow Kids with Divorced Parents, KWDP
Yes,
Pod, and look at Disgruntled Eagles Fan, because we've got some old podcasts on there, but there's more stuff coming out soon once someone edits. Who's talking about that? But yes, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for coming on.
Lovely chatting with you, even though this feels crazy and so professional. This is not how we talk to each other normally. We should not film how we talk to each other normally, but we do, and it's Kids with Divorced Parents.
Go follow.
Go follow. Goodbye.